Now everyone's got that one friend that's super chill and easygoing, and anytime you talk to him, it makes you feel like you're on a tropical beach, and they also have a much cooler name than anybody else you know. That would be Trig. Trig is super committed and passionate about his career, which is film. He is currently in the film industry, he grinds hard every day, and when he approached me last week and asked if I could build him a 4K, 6K, potentially even an 8K red editing system for his budget of $1,000, I knew that something had to be done and that I had to intervene somehow.
Today's sponsor is the PowerColor Red Devil RX 5700 XT. In my testing, this card kept AMD's 7nm GPU 10 degrees C cooler under load than the reference design. Ball-bearing fans bring the noise down to a whisper that's virtually silent in most cases, the metallic backplate features large cutouts for assisted ventilation, and for the first time ever, the Red Devil takes on a new look with RGB lighting. To learn more, click on the link below.
Well, you can build a respectable 4K editing machine on that kind of budget. You would have to cut some corners, and for someone like Trig who's taking film and their career and their passion so seriously, I figured there was something we could do to help him out. Not to mention the Mac Mini dual-core system that he's currently using to edit is just not cutting it these days. So again, I've selected all these parts. None of this was provided by any sponsors. This is all of our own stuff, but most of it, honestly, has kind of just been collecting dust, so I know Trig can put it to much better use than I can. Let's start with the CPU here. Now, a lot of the applications that Trig's going to be using are heavily multi-threaded, so I figured high core and thread count was essential for a solid editing system. So here we have the AMD Ryzen Threadripper 2nd Gen 2970WX. This is a 24-core, 48-thread CPU. This is an insane amount of power that's absolutely wasted on me, so I'm actually pretty excited to give it a new home. That'll be living inside of the ASRock X399 Tai Chi. This is actually a board that I purchased myself from Micro Center probably last year. For some reason, I didn't have an X399 board on hand for testing, and I really needed one that day, so I ran to Micro Center when our office was much closer to it, bought the board, used the board once, and then put it back in the box, never touched it again. So fantastic board, tons of I/O, beautiful aesthetic. Yeah, it's great. Speaking of that I/O, this platform does support quad channel memory, so of course we have 32 gigs of G.Skill Trident Z RGB DDR4 at 3200 speed. Ooh yeah. The Trig storage solution is going to be pretty simple in this build. We have a 1TB MS30 from Team Group. This is a 1TB SSD. So it's M.2, but it's SATA Rev 3, 6 gigabit per second. None of that fancy NVMe stuff, but still, 1TB of NAND flash storage is not too shabby. According to Trig, he edits off of external drives most of the time, so I figured one internal drive would be good enough for now. If he ever wanted to add more storage down the line or set up something like a RAID array for redundancy, he could easily do so in the Enthoo Pro M from Fantex. This is a lovely case. It's not a new case by any means, but still a tried and true option in my book. It's got that nice mesh front panel, so you get plenty of healthy airflow, tempered glass side panel, power supply shroud, very nice spacious interior, and tons of water cooling support. Now for a typical editing system, the CPU is generally the star of the show. It's handling most of the work, whereas the GPU acts more or less like an assistant with assisted rendering and things like that. Having said that, I didn't want to skimp out on a GPU, so we have an EVGA GeForce GTX 1080 for the win too. I actually used this for a few months in my personal system, did a fantastic job. The ICX cooler from EVGA stays very cool and has plenty of sensors on board to monitor temperatures and things like that. So happy to be using that today. Now with 24 cores and 48 Ryzen threads, we need some heavy-duty cooling on board. So I have the Corsair H15 I Rgb Platinum. This is a 240mm liquid AIO. As you can see, it's loaded with RGB lighting, but more importantly, it comes included with two very high-performing ML140 Pro fans, which do an excellent job of moving airflow while keeping noise to a minimum. For additional cooling in our case, we've got some ML120 Pro LED fans, also from Corsair. Again, these are some of the best case fans that you can currently buy on the market. These are the white LED models, so I guess now would be a good time to tell you guys that all the RGB lighting in this system will be changed to white. I'm going to change everything manually to white because I think it's a professional workstation. White is generally a bit more professional looking. I mean, RGB kind of just says, look at me, I'm a gamer. But I think for a professional workstation, white is pretty slick and classy. Giving life to our system is the Cooler Master V850 power supply. This is also one that I've used here and there. It's mostly been used for test builds. Finally, I'm going to top off the build with some aesthetic touches, including some CableMod Pro Series sleeved extensions in black. They look oh so nice, and also the CableMod wide beam LED kit, which is an RGB strip. I think it's 60 centimeters and comes with a little remote and stuff. It's very, very cool. And those are all the parts for this lovely surprise build. If you guys want links to all this stuff, I'll put it in the description in case you're interested. But the way this is going to work is I'm going to build the system right meow, and then in 2 days, Trig is going to come over to my place to shoot what he thinks is a little interview where I ask him questions about why he needs a build and what he plans to use it for. But you guys already know all that. Really, we're just going to ambush him with a brand spanking new system that's already built and ready for him to take home. And hopefully he breaks down and cries and tells me I'm the best person in the world. That's really all I want is his love. All right, y'all, I'm ready. Are you ready? I'm ready. I'm ready. Let's build Trig a new computer. And the build is complete. It looks really, really good, but you might notice that certain things have changed. For example, the GPU is different, as is the memory kit. Why? Why, Kyle, did you swap those out at the last minute? I'll tell you. For starters, the system was blue screening anytime I would try to render anything in Adobe Premiere Pro, and it was because of the memory kit. This memory kit, for some reason, was giving the system issues. As soon as I swapped it out, boom, flawless. Flawless rendering across the board. So now we have virtually the same kit, but just non-RGB, still 3200 speed. It's actually faster, has a much faster latency. I think we're going down to 14 and 34 as opposed to 18 and 38 on these. So he's actually getting a better kit, just sans RGB, and we still have 32 gigs there. So that's all good and gravy. The GPU was kind of an oddball thing because I completely forgot that this GPU's only HDMI port on the back does not work. And Trig has informed me that he's editing currently on his TV at home. He's been using it apparently for a while, and he enjoys doing it that way. So I wanted to give him the option to have native HDMI on the back. Of course, he could use an adapter with something like this, but in my experience, adapters are kind of a pain in the butt. They don't always work properly, and even when they do, they put a lot of unnecessary strain on your ports. So all things considered, I decided to swap out the GTX 1080 for an MSI Duke RTX 2070. It should be a bit faster, I think, than the GTX 1080, and of course, it's a newer card. It's going to get more updated features like ray tracing in case he wants to take advantage of that. I don't know if he plans to game on this thing at all, but he certainly can if he wants to. So yeah, that's pretty much the build. It looks fantastic. I hope Trig likes it. We'll actually be able to confirm if he does in just a moment because he's currently on his way and he should be here any minute. Hey, what's going on, man? Come on in. I can show you exactly what I've got in store. So basically, we're gonna do a quick little interview and pick out your parts. Sure. Basically. So this is sort of an example of, I guess, what you could get like down the line, because this is probably roughly a $3,000 system that I'm building for a client, and this is like sort of the end goal. This is like what I would confide in if you were actually doing straight up 8K editing all the time. This is actually, it's funny, the client who I'm building this for, his name's actually Trig.
Is that for real?
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, and
Where's he from?
He's actually here right now.
Yeah.
Like in the house.
Oh. No.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Dude.
Yeah, man. We pulled some parts together from our own inventory, and you're basically looking at around a $3,000 system. So we've got a 24 core, 48 thread CPU in there. It's pretty much the best editing system that we could put together with parts that we had. Some of which were new. This is your new system.
Dude,
hopefully.
That's so cool. It's gonna be a story for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
If anyone ever comes over to edit.
Yeah, and I think that's also what I had in mind, that if people see this build in your house, they might have questions about it, and it could inspire them to build a system themselves, or switch to PC if they're a Mac user, or subscribe to my channel, which is also a plus. All right, guys, that's Trig's build. Trig, what do you think of it?
I love it. It is super sexy. I can't wait to actually like use it, throw some footage into it, get coloring, test it, see how far it can go, see what the limits are, and then maybe even try and upgrade it and customize it a little bit further.
Sounds like a great plan for your new system. I'm glad you like it, man. I hope it serves you well.
Hey, love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. And you should try gaming on this thing a little bit. Actually, I take that back. You better game on this thing.